Well, there's a slow migration back to the office for professionals across Southeast Asia at the moment, but is this the new normal that businesses have been waiting for? And what are the pros and cons of non-compete agreements for staff in 2022? Shining a spotlight on all things HR, this is the HR Agenda. I'm Paul Howell. Joining me here this week is Mayank Parekh, the CEO of Singapore's Institute for HR Professionals. Mayank, welcome. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
So IHRP has certainly been busy in the first part of the year. What's been high on your HR agenda most recently?
Paul, recently I think what everyone has been talking about is really COVID, obviously, in terms of what we've been going through here in Singapore. So we're going through a wave of Omicron wave. And we've seen cases in the thousands, which is something that we've not seen in Singapore for a very long time. So that's occupying HR, and we are supporting HR professionals in terms of responding to that for the organizations, as well as how they can better prepare for the future. The other thing that's going on is also our budget. In Parliament, the government has unveiled its budget plan, and we're kind of looking at how that is going to impact the HR community. So we look at the three things that will probably be coming their way. One is the government's trying to improve the complementarity of our foreign workforce, how the foreign work component of the Singapore workforce, which is about 1/3 of the workforce, can better complement the local workforce. So there'll be some measures and policies that will be announced in the coming weeks. So we'll be helping HR professionals to understand and manage some of these things, how these apply within the organizations.
As we move into the new normal in the workplace, firms across the region are having to develop policies and engagement strategies to ensure those workplaces are safe and helping to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Governments have a big role to play here, but it's typically at the workplace level that things like vaccination mandates and safe distancing strategies can really have their intended impact across the whole of society. Now, this gets even more complicated because employees have such a wide range of different degrees of interest in safe distancing measures in the workplace and everywhere in society. Here in Singapore, there has been some excellent coordination between the tripartite partners of employer groups, unions and government, but it's likely HR leaders who will still be at the coalface when they're implementing these strategies. Mayank, do you have any advice for them at this pivotal time in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic?
Like you said, Paul, we've been lucky in Singapore in terms of certainly, I think there's been a lot of government direction and top-down kind of very clear policies, frameworks in terms of how, as a society, we needed to deal with this pandemic. So it's not just the workplace, it's not just the employers, but it's also what we do in schools, what we do in the community, also then bears upon the response. And so I think because the government has been very coordinated in its response across the various facets of the economy.
And how different do you expect workplaces and working cultures in Singapore to be from what we might have known prior to 2020?
It's a good question. I think it's hard to be crystal ball gazing in at this time with so much change going on. But certainly, I think one of the things that we did is we actually asked the same question to our community. So we were fortunate to get over 1,000 responses. So we essentially asked them, what do you think would be some of the changes, and what would be some of your top priorities for this year? And the first thing that came up was certainly managing employee engagement and retention. I think certainly, I think a lot of organizations are feeling that certainly the engagement levels have suffered over the course of the pandemic, and that's showed up in various ways. It showed up in terms of some productivity challenges. It showed up in terms of some disengagement, as well as in terms of um, higher attrition. So I think that's one of the challenges that we will have to continue to face going forward.
The HR industry in Singapore has become significantly more professionalised over the past 5 years, thanks in no small part to the work of IHRP. Now, how has that helped HR professionals to deal with the unprecedented events over the last few years?
There's no one magic bullet that's out there, and I think we need to um, do kind of look at it as in combination with everything else that we've been trying to do in the HR ecosystem here in Singapore. So certainly, I think one of the things that we've emphasized a lot on is on continual learning and continual education, right? And this is something the universities, the polytechnics, the private training providers do an exceptionally good job here in Singapore to ensure that our workers continue to be upskilled, continue to learn beyond school, and this will continue to be the case for HR as well. So I think recently the minister for education made a statement to say that we would expect 500,000 of our workers to go through some form of training every year, right? Just in order to just ensure that they upskilled and they continue to be employable for the future. And that's a tall order. And so certainly I think it's the same for HR. What can HR do to continue to upskill, to learn and unlearn sometimes even skills which we know are out there. So digital skills around curating the employee experience, skills around providing the internal marketing, the internal support, and at the same time providing, ensuring that where the company is looking at their business as beyond profit, right? They're looking more at purpose. How can HR help and support these companies to identify meaning behind some of these sustainable initiatives that the company has embarked on?
And finally, Mayank, do you have any advice for HR leaders outside of Singapore where vaccination rates have not been as strong and where there is a measure of resistance to some of those changes that we've talked about in Singapore? How can they set policies to get the best out of their workforce while also keeping it and others safe?
Some of the things that we've gone through here in Singapore would apply, right? I think certainly our vaccination mandates it's something that a lot of countries are looking at, encouraging more and more of their population to get vaccinated. Currently, that's the best defense that we have against the virus. How HR professionals here helped enforce some of these mandates. I think a lot of communication with employees. As I mentioned, we do have a group of employees who have not been vaccinated for various reasons, and it's important for us to understand the reasons why, to engage them, to provide the right support. Some of that support includes ensuring that if they have been misinformed, because there's a lot of misinformation, fake news out there in social media in particular, then this is an opportunity to provide a balanced view of the vaccination situation and how it could benefit them.
Next up, we have another interesting topic which is not commonly discussed. We're talking about non-compete agreements. Now, to give a brief description, a non-compete agreement is a clause in a contract specifying that an employee must not join a competitor for a certain period after they finish that contract. Many firms do include these clauses, sometimes as standard inclusions across all of their employment contracts, but there's actually little case law to ensure enforcement across their terms. More common is that the clause acts as an effective deterrent in its own right, making employees think twice or three times or more before jumping on board with a company rival. Some jurisdictions, most recently Ontario in Canada, have taken a step to ban non-compete clauses from all employment contracts, saying that they take away from the individual agency of workers to choose where and how and who they exchange their labour with. Now, Mayank, what are the risks that HR and employers face if former staff are able to freely join their competitors as soon as they've signed off from their first job?
Certainly, I think when you look at it from the employer's point of view, when you say, okay, what's important for me in my business? What is it that sets me apart from my competitors? What gives me the edge? And a lot of it is around certainly the IP that you have, the technology, but equally it's also the relationships you have with your clients, right? The connections that you have with your trading partners, and all that is part and parcel of what makes you different and what gives you the edge. And if there is certainly there is a danger of some of that eroding through employees who leave you and also take away some of that advantage, then I think employers have a legitimate claim and a legitimate interest to protect.
Mayank, is this just a question of balance, weighing up the rights of both employers and their staff and finding a reasonable compromise?
Yes, it should be about that, but it should also be about communications with your employees so that they understand the rationale. And as far as possible, you would you would want um, this not to be the subject of a legal challenge, because this is something that certainly I think then it's not a question of who wins, but then certainly there is the cost involved and the time involved in mounting that challenge and defending that challenge. So I think by and large, my advice would be to ensure that you consult your legal experts, you provide employees with the rationale as much as you can possibly convince them of the reasonableness of the clauses, and where there are uh, areas that you can be flexible, where employees come to you to kind of say that yes, they have an opportunity, but it is not exactly a competitor, but neither, they're not sure whether, they can or cannot, or they infringe on those clauses, then that flexibility is important. Uh, Having that ability to talk things through, I think that's important. So that would be what I would advise.
Today, firms are facing a skills gap and the ongoing war for talent. Do you think these sorts of clauses can even further deteriorate the current situation?
I hope not. I think it's like all trade restraint clauses like these. They introduce a rigidity in the market, and rigidity means certainly I think particularly in a tight labor market that we find ourselves in, you don't want that rigidity in place. It drives distortions. It distorts market forces, and certainly that's not good news for companies as well as for workers. So you don't want this to be something that predominates the markets and the market movements. So I would say yes, there is a danger, but let's see how we can try not to create too much of an issue here, both employees and employers then have a responsibility to kind of provide that middle ground. So what is that middle ground? Can we kind of agree, bring in some mediation if necessary? I think that's something that more and more companies are looking at, mediation or as opposed to a legal recourse. Uh,
Thanks, Mayank. We will certainly keep an eye on how Asian firms will adapt to these changes over the next few years. Up next, we're talking HR Tech with Chief of Staff Asia's Technology Editor, Vandana Nanwani. Hi, Vandana. It's great to have you back. What will you be sharing about in today's HR Tech update?
Hi Paul, in today's episode I will be discussing the technologies used during the recruitment process and how they are proving beneficial to both employers and candidates. Now, as we know, the recruitment process can be tedious, but is one of the most important and visible aspects of HR. Now, the tech involved helps HR and talent acquisition specialists to target the right candidates and also speeds up the process amongst many other benefits.
So what technology and trends are HR professionals using to enable this easier recruitment process?
Now, there is plenty of recruitment tech out there and different solutions that help firms through each stage of the recruitment process. For example, job aggregators like Glassdoor and Indeed.com have gained popularity to help firms advertise and get their job descriptions in front of the right types of candidates. Then there is the applicant tracking system that is now a vital tool at the post-application step. These provide a digital repository of all applications, allowing HR professionals to easily sort and rank candidates according to different criteria. Similarly, these systems allow for the automation of many of the steps involved in the application workflow, freeing up HR professionals' time to focus really on more valuable tasks related to reviewing applicants. Now, HR analytics solution also have some value during recruitment exercises, providing long-term data and metrics to continually improve and fine-tune the selection process.
And how are these technologies changing the way organizations are recruiting now?
Now, they're all about streamlining processes to ensure more of the right types of candidates are connected with recruiters for more roles and with less time and effort spent on attracting candidates who are not suitable. The technology should also help talent acquisition specialists to provide improved experiences for candidates so that even the unsuccessful ones go away with a more positive impression of the organization. In this way, recruitment technology is often about automation, but automation with a very human and interactive appeal.
Thanks, Vandana. We'll see you on the next episode with more HR technology updates.
Thanks, Paul.
Well, that's just about all we have time for on the HR agenda today. Thanks very much to you, Mayank, for being a part of this episode.
Thank you, Paul.
And thanks to all the HR professionals out there watching us this week in Southeast Asia. Do stay connected with all the latest news, views and insights on the regional HR profession at chiefofstaff.asia, including our exclusive interview with Amy Swan, the Global Vice President of People and Strategy with business analytics provider Mixpanel. That will be revealed on the website from Tuesday next week. Even more exciting though is the upcoming launch of the HR Stars Awards program, with nominations open from April 13. Chief of Staff Asia will be searching high and low for the best and brightest HR people, teams and strategies in Singapore and throughout Southeast Asia. This is the only awards program driven by Chief of Staff Asia's famous love of HR, so do get involved and help us celebrate this results-driven profession for everyone in business today. As always, all the links and details from everything we've spoken about will be in the article or the description box of this video, and please do subscribe to get first access to all of our independently researched content. I'm Paul Howell, and thank you for watching the HR Agenda.